So welcome everyone. We have got the webinar today, Webroot Smarter Cybersecurity, and I'm going to give the word to Charlie Tomeo, who's our VP of Worldwide Channel Sales.
Thanks, Gabrielle. Thanks everyone for joining. It's a bit too bad that we couldn't be in person, but as we all know, the world's changed a bit. Certainly, I know it has for us here, but glad to spend some time with you today. I want to walk through, I guess what we're seeing from a, just what the state of attack looks like for 2020. So some of the changes that we've seen, and of course, the bad guys always take advantage of any opportunity that they can to come after us. But want to walk through some of that, and then would like to just walk you through some of the things and the changes at Webroot. As many of you probably know, that Webroot has been a part of two acquisitions in the past. Certainly last year, and at this point where we've come out of it, we've done some great integration within the teams, and we'd just like to talk to you about how we work together. So this is always great. I have to give credit to our smart guys on the threat research side. When I look at these slides, these aren't something that I had created myself, but I look at what's happened even in a 6-month time frame from a ransomware standpoint, and this is really driven by COVID, where we're getting to the point where I would say by the end of the year, the average ransomware payment, it's going to be about $200K. I mean, that is a big increase of what we're seeing. So we'll continue to see that as that move forward. Some of the things that as far as what we've seen just from a vulnerability standpoint is, the fact that all of a sudden we went from, everybody, going into an office, working from an office. Now everyone's working from home. And it's a bit different than, the way that we've traveled. If you look at me personally, I spend a lot of time, or did spend a lot of time on planes, going out to partners, going out to conferences. But one of the things that changed as we kind of went into a lockdown or sheltering in place mode is that a lot of people are a bit more lax than what they're doing. We're seeing this from a standpoint of using their personal PCs. Even on the Webroot side, we saw a huge uptick in all of a sudden people renewing our consumer product because they turned devices on that they hadn't used in some cases years. So that for us is a big issue where, even the, most people when they would travel were kind of used to connecting through a VPN, whereas, right now everyone's working from home. And I'd say, based on my neighborhood alone, there's probably 10 Wi-Fi networks that I could get on at any given time without a password. So there's definitely a lot more risk as people are moving to work from home. So here are some of the challenges that we're certainly seeing. The amount of ransomware attacks is continuing to increase. It's I think for the bad guys, unfortunately, it's the gift that keeps on giving, and the channel is a big target for them. Certainly, anybody that does anything that's managed, they have something absolutely that they need to worry about, because it's a lot easier going after the SMB community through somebody that manages 200 SMBs than going one by one. So we'll continue to see that as it moves up. The amount that are targeted by COVID related malware is, that's just taken off. We're seeing that all the time. In fact, I think I received one yesterday just from Facebook, a phishing attack saying that I was in a different country and changing my password and click on here, and it's pretty easy to see that it's bad, but not for the average person. The volumes increased. Everybody, like I said, is at home and they're a lot more at risk. So, we're seeing, it's enough that most of our customers and our partners are challenged with with working from home and trying to evolve their business there, but then they're having more attacks that are coming up. And certainly we're seeing, the big things, Netflix, YouTube, HBO, as people have worked from home and they're home all the time. They can't go out. So people are certainly leveraging the streaming services. So, the big ones that I certainly see as we're on Zoom today is, we've seen everything from Zoom specific attacks to Zoom bombing, where people are taking over and popping in, and I think that one's a little bit more old school, where they're just doing it to be funny, or maybe to show their friends that they're doing it, but it's still a big problem. We also are seeing, RDP is still a huge vector for us, even though this is something that we've talked about for years. There's still a 40% increase in RDP as a big attack vector for us. So it's something that we definitely make sure, as we talk about best practices, making sure that your machines are patched and locked down. So now I'm going to walk through a little bit, and I think, Phil's been doing a great job as, the person that's championing certainly Webroot through the CMS partners. But, want to walk through kind of, what we look at from an evolution standpoint, and what really cyber resilience means to us. And it's really taking, with the changes that we've had, it's really taking the, what we have on the data security side and data protection, and seeing how we kind of marry those so that it's a more purpose-built solution for the channel, and certainly for the SMB community. So we talk about this all the time. Certainly, how SMBs are under attack, and I think it's just one of those things where people have found it that they're not going to have maybe as much of a defense in depth approach as you'd see at the enterprise. So it makes it a little bit easier for them. A lot of times, the data that they have on the specific devices is stuff that they're either not backing up, or it's or may or may not be fitting certain compliance regulations depending on the country. But we're even seeing the bad guys now, because of what's going on even with backup, where they're taking your data. If you don't play the ransomware, they're just releasing your data out into the wild. So even though you're able to recover your data and there's not an issue, we're seeing a big uptick in that, where they're just exposing you. So now you have to make sure that you're reporting that you had a breach, which could be very impactful, certainly to us in the channel, but it could be a bigger issue if you're that small business dealing with that impact. So as far as why companies need cyber resilience and what that means, we'll walk through it from a product standpoint, but it really is that that fitness level, right? It's that cyber fitness, making sure that not only that your devices are protected, but your data is protected, and it certainly is backed up. And our goal here is to make sure that we are the trusted advisor to our partners, and so as we see these things, and as we see the threat landscape change, we want to make sure that we're bringing you the solutions that will help you. When we talk about defense in depth and cyber resilience, it's train, block, protect, backup, and recover. And we have here the different solutions that fit into that. But certainly, when you look at what the concerns that you should have, certainly is the end users are probably the biggest vector and biggest concern, and that has actually gotten worse and not better, especially with people being at home and people I guess feeling confident that they're connected to their home network, so it can't be a problem leaving their devices wide open at times. We also look from a blocking standpoint, making sure that you're protecting from a network standpoint. It's always good to block things before they actually hit the device. But then once they do hit the device, making sure that your endpoint's actually protected. And we have a bunch of different ways that we do that. And all that is backed up by our threat intelligence, our BrightCloud threat intelligence, which is actually something that leverages not just what we do in the channel and for businesses. It leverages the data that we're receiving from all our OEM relationships, as well as the consumer base. The other thing from a protect standpoint, Carbonite endpoint, as well as backup. So some of the things that you'll wind up hearing, certainly for the Webroot partners that are out there that maybe aren't using Carbonite backup, or even maybe not using backup at all, are the risks that you have with not backing up Microsoft Office 365. So that's one of the things that we always have an interesting conversation where everyone thinks that Microsoft's backing up the data, but ultimately it doesn't prevent people from going in and deleting something, or if you get hacked, if they delete it, then it's not going to be there. So talking about that server backup, and then talking about high availability, so making sure that you always have access to your data, and being able to recover your data if there's an issue. So Webroot and Carbonite cyber resilience solutions, we're looking to certainly guard against data theft and business disruption, and those things both could be catastrophic to your end customers. We want to seamlessly back and recover data to continue supporting clients, enable staff to focus their time on critical issues, and protect profitability through security and lower cost of management. Those are always the big things, really across the board, whether you're just reselling the product or you're managing it, is, the less time that you wind up taking managing and fixing issues, the better off you are when you're dealing with these solutions. So, as far as slide deck goes, because I'm not going to bore everybody with, we didn't call you on here to have, countless slides to go through, but I would say from a best practice standpoint, and this is not just all around the Webroot solutions or Carbonite solutions, is just make sure that you have a solid cybersecurity strategy, and that you do have that defense in depth. So the days of just having an endpoint product or maybe URL filtering are over. Certainly embrace user education. The more that your users know about what to do, when they're online, the better off that you're going to be. I'd also make sure that we're locking down remote connections. So leveraging a VPN. Then definitely disabling what you don't use. So if you don't need RDP for something, you shouldn't have it wide open just all the time. Inventory patch management have always been important. We always wind up seeing that when there is an attack out there for a bit, that if we just actually updated our and patched our devices, we'd be in a better place. Making sure that you're backing up multiple backups, strong password policies. You'd still be surprised how many people use the same password across a small business. And then certainly educate yourself. So that's, hopefully this is, part of that when we talk about education goes, but certainly make sure that you're educating yourself, that you're leveraging, your partnership with CMS and the vendors that they partner with to make sure that you're, constantly up to date on what's going on. So that's all I had for that, Phil. I think, we did have a bunch of questions. I don't know if you had any specific feedback on some of the things that we just went over. But
no, I think the relevance was spot on, especially with security awareness. I think with a lot of resellers now and their customers, there's a lot more pickup of that. Training their staff of things to look out for, phishing, scams, and all the rest of it, as you touched on at the start, which is brilliant. A lot of people wouldn't have entertained that probably a year ago, but the uptake of that has been exponential. Things like DNS from working from home, being able to see what sort of websites your staff are going on that sort of thing, has been a big upturn as well. So I think people who sort of took it for granted previously now have a total different attitude, and what we need to do is just keep on that and helping the resellers as well as their customers of what they need to do to keep moving forward and keeping their information safe.
Yeah, one thing, it's funny you bring up security awareness training, because when you look at these things, as we evolve certainly from a cybersecurity standpoint, there's always other solutions that are coming up, right? So you feel like you're constantly going in and you're trying to sell them on the next greatest thing. But you look at security awareness training, I would guarantee you, certainly being over in in EMEA, that most of them are doing some of that training already. GDPR, if everybody has to be PCI compliant, and that's part of the offering, right? So it's not, when we talk about security awareness training, it's not just all around, hey, how do we make sure we train them on not clicking on the next phishing?
Yeah, true. Very
and
true.
How do we test them out? But we certainly have seen those things are always great. Doing you definitely don't, being part of a cybersecurity vendor, you don't want to be the one that gets tested internally. Like the UPS or
Netflix.
But we do see, we have statistics that show that as you start doing those and as you start testing, we do wind up seeing how it reduces, how you're educating people, and they're getting better at it.
Absolutely. We've got any questions from
Yes, we do. So a number of questions you've answered, Charlie, within that presentation. So brilliant. So we'll just start on this one. If you were a startup reseller focused on security, what areas would you focus on?
Do you want me to answer that one, Charlie? Ideally, you have to fit it for your customer, not one AV or one cybersecurity is going to fit all. You've got to deliver on what the customer needs and requires, and actually delve in a little bit deeper on what they require, because they may have a wish list that's there, but not necessarily what they need. So I would ask a lot more questions than just going with, oh, they want semantic, oh, they just want Webroot. Great if they want Webroot, don't get me wrong, but at the same time, you need to deliver what the customer actually needs, not what they think they need.
Yeah, I think that's right. The other thing I would say is, if you're just getting started, is to not just look specifically at reselling something, to see how else do you provide additional value on top of that. So, we certainly have seen a huge uptick in the past, 5 or 6 years in managed service providers. But what a lot of people don't realize is that most of those are what we on the vendor side consider a hybrid, right? So they're not just doing managed service, they're also reselling. So to make sure that, ultimately, you want to be, from that standpoint, you want to be that trusted vendor, right? That's something that they're relying on. And I think it helps you become that if you're able to go in and help them manage things. Because right now we're all, I think in a bit of a tough spot. And this is across the board, where we don't have enough cyber professionals out there to really cover the needs of the masses. So, that's why, on the Webroot side, we certainly had taken it. And now that, we're part of, the whole open text brand, we're looking at this as, how we, how we extension of our channel base, and how do we help educate them more and more so that, it's one thing I always talk to the sales team about is just make sure if you know one more thing than the person you're talking to, you're now the expert in the room.
Very true.
Right. So that's why we do a lot of things like we do our annual threat report. We make sure that we get that out to the channel so that as you're talking, we make sure that you're able to talk intelligently about that with your partners. But it's very much, the channel is something that it's amazing to see, for me to see, even, going over to the UK and Ireland for years, is how it's evolved even over the past few years, where it's very much that, consultative solution type selling. And so that's what, my advice would be to see, who do you partner with? What do you really want to do? Because even as a reseller, you're still selling a solution. You're not in there and just pushing boxes. So it's amazing to see. I'm so impressed with how the channel's evolved, though, over the past few years in that way.
Me too.
Right, so our next question, this I suppose is how long is a piece of string, but where do you see cybersecurity in the next 5 years?
I'll let you answer that one, Charlie.
So I would say, certainly the one thing as a whole, cybersecurity, I really, hope that there's a lot of smart young people that are studying right now, so that we can really help fill some of these open roles and these vacancies in the market, because it is a difficult situation. And it's certainly, I think, a big challenge for the channel, because with not enough, it's a supply and demand issue. And those things are always a tough thing, where people are just going to get paid. Even if you invest in somebody on your team, whether it's on the pre-sale side or building out the strategy, there's always the worry that they will go and do something else, which, we all encourage. We want to see people develop. But so that's one of the things. My hope in the 5 years is that we have more of an influx in it, especially with what we're seeing, and with everyone being at home. Hopefully, they're studying up instead of out partying. But so I think that's the thing that I see from that standpoint. From a a bit more, I guess, internal or selfish is with all the different things that we're doing from a product standpoint on the Webroot side, in trying to cover these different vectors that are certainly an issue today, but will be an issue in the future. Is how do we leverage that contextual data across these different vectors and really help and learn from one another? So an example would be when we talk about the end user, right? How that is a very big threat to any organization today. It'd be great if they clicked on that Netflix phishing campaign, and then all of a sudden they got served up some training, right? So that they got trained on and certified. And our goal, the next 5 years, and you'll see it sooner than the 5, but it'll be ongoing, is how do we automate some of this stuff and make it so that again, we can be that trusted advisor, so that you don't have to go out and hire somebody that is the expert, that you are actually the expert, and we're giving you the tools to go do it.
Good. Yeah. Didn't think of it that way. Very good. Cool.
Yeah, I quite like your answer, Charlie. What is interesting, I think you see as well, is that, we talk about safety outside, right? There's a lot of talk about it, especially in the US, about safety and how you make sure that you can walk the streets nice and safe. But it's the same actually in now today when we work from home, right? With our networks being open, and we want to secure them, making sure you use the right security solutions. I think that's for resellers definitely something they need to be aware of. That's developing. The smarter the technology that gets, and people being the number one reason for getting your company more secured. I think you're spot on with that one, and it will definitely evolve the next 5 years. Yeah,
and it's really going to be, as much as the vendors and the vendors are going to be a big part of that. Really, it's the channel. We can't. We only have a certain reach, right? Without the channel, it just doesn't happen. And I'm really optimistic that we can certainly not just manage the changes in the threat landscape, but as a whole, as a community, we could beat it. And I'll give you the greatest example is my dad's 84. And he doesn't open anything without calling me. So if I could, then there's absolutely no reason why, as a channel, that we can't go out and make sure that we're educating people.
Yeah, very true.
Obviously, also on the threat report you mentioned, we can send that across to all of the participants today so that they have that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Brilliant. So next up, do you think cybersecurity is oversaturated by many different vendors? And as a reseller, when it comes to security, how many vendors is too many?
Can we answer that one? Obviously, I deal with it a lot. So I would love all my resellers only to sell Webroot and Carbonite, obviously. But as I was speaking earlier about the solution, and Charlie was talking about the solution and being that, that advisor to your clients. Unfortunately, not one product fits all. I think it's multi-layered. Obviously, we're learning and growing each time, and obviously a new threat comes out, and then we try to overcome that. But there is a lot of vendors out there that do what we don't do, and we do a lot of things that they don't do. So I think it's a multi-layered approach. I think if you've got multi-vendors doing the exact same thing, that's when it becomes, a lot more difficult where to put it. But if it's multi-vendors talking about lots of different layers of security and protecting yourself, then I don't think there is too many, as long as it's protecting you, rather than sort of overcompensating for the same thing. But that's obviously only my theory on it. I'm sure Charlie's got his own.
Well, no, and I would say, I agree with you. I think as far as, having a bunch of, vendors in the space, it is a very, it's top of mind for everybody. Like I said before, I would assume there's a bunch of people that now that they've been home and not traveling and not going to conferences, that there's going to be a lot more things that you're going to start to see and a lot more startups that pop up. So I think, innovation is always good. The only thing that I would say, and I don't think, any of us could really answer this. I think this is going to be up to you as the reseller is, the more vendors that you bring on, the less meaningful each of those partnerships gets. So that's one thing that I think is a concern. And then the other thing is, that means it's more things that your team has to get trained on. So I know, you look at certainly even from a distribution standpoint, we see the difference between a value-added distributor and just, more of a broadline distributor, right? And somebody that has everything and it's still kind of catalog based, and they both serve a very, they both serve a purpose, but it's a bit different on how you go to market together. And so I would just say to take a look at, if you're going to start adding and adding, multiple solutions to solve one problem, depending on the size of your business, you may be losing margin by doing it, because now you have your techies going and getting certified on 3 different things. I look at, some of the more evolved managed service providers. I've had conversations where they could kind of almost take it down to like the amount of points of from a margin standpoint that they lose if they offer something else. If they don't standardize in a reference stack. So I'm not against Phil, I think you're spot on where, certain solutions may be to solve certain problems, but I don't know that I would also go and sign up, 4 different, endpoint vendors, because it's going to be harder for you to not only to present them well to your customer base, but you're probably going to be harder for you to get attention.
Manager. No, I agree.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much. I'll open the questions up to the floor if anyone's got any questions they'd like to ask. Thank you very much for everyone who sent their questions through for Charlie and Phil to answer. We hope that gave you a really great insight. But as I said, the questions are open to the floor if anyone's got anything.
Yeah, but I would certainly say for everybody that's on the call, we certainly appreciate you joining. Reach out to Phil and the folks at CMS if there's something that we missed or that you need help on. That's what we're here. We're truly here to partner with you, and it's something that we take pride in. So we'll make sure that we get the resources to help you.
I think I've spoken to the majority of the people on the call, and I will follow up with you afterwards as well and just see if there's anything that you do want to know more. I know sometimes it's a bit embarrassing asking a question in front of 30 or 40 people, so more than happy to answer any questions on email. I will call all of you individually, get your idea of how you think it went. I think it's very important for us and for Webroot and Carbonite as a whole to see what you wanted out of it, if you got what you wanted out of it, and moving forward, if we're going to do this again, which I hope we do, that you give us some ideas of what you want to get out of it so we can deliver on what you want and what you need. So thank you everyone for joining us.
I will also send out around the slide deck and this recording so everyone has a copy of that as well.
Cool.
Thank you, CMS, for hosting this. And thank you, Charlie, for the talk and for the insights. I really appreciate it. I hope the audience did as well. So,
yeah, thanks, Charlie. Hopefully we can do it again soon because I think it was invaluable. So thank you. I'll join you at the pub.
Yeah, I hope so. We're going to head off to the pub. It's kind of too bad we can't, but
yeah.
Certainly in the near future, hopefully we'll be able to get kind of back over and really get in front of some of the partners. So we'd love to do something a little bit more in person.
Brilliant. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone, for joining.
thank you.
Oh, it looks like we better have one question.
Oh, question.
Sorry, no, it was someone saying
thank you.
Sorry about that. Right, thank you very much and speak to you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.